As we prepare for retirement, we realize we're not the first ones. As a matter of fact, there's a government study out there that talks about the 5 categories that most retirees spend 82% of their income in. We're going to talk about that. See if you were as surprised as we were. Hi, I'm Rich.
And I'm Robbie. Today we're going to talk about the 5 categories that the average retiree spends about 82% of their retirement income on.
I got these numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They did a survey called the Consumer Expenditure Survey, and I focused on people of retirement age and broke it down into like Robbie said, the 5 categories that they spend the most on. We're going to go from the least amount of spending to the most and see if you can guess ahead of time. Like we said, we're going to talk about the top 5 categories. There's a bunch of smaller categories that make up the other 18% of people's spending. We're just talking about the top 82% and those 5 categories.
The first one we're going to talk about is entertainment. And entertainment makes up about 4.8% of total expenses that retirees spend their money on.
Yeah, entertainment includes like anything you pay a fee to go to. So concerts and any venue that you have to pay to get into, theme parks, the stuff that has an admission fee,
Movies.
A movie. Yeah. It doesn't take into account like going out to eat. That's not entertainment according to this survey. That falls into a category we'll talk about in a few minutes. So yeah, again, like Robbie said, it's 4.8%. And that doesn't sound like a big number, but 4.8% of your overall income, that's significant.
For sure.
And again, it's talking about when you do go on vacation, and maybe that's something we'll talk about real quick, is this survey didn't break out like travel or vacation, like the time, because as we're preparing for retirement, we're thinking about we're going to do some traveling, especially in the early years of retirement, right? So this survey doesn't break that out separately. It kind of talks about the individual phases of travel, and it'll make more sense as we go through.
Right. I mean, essentially, the food part of travel is going to be in its own category. The admission park prices of travel is in entertainment.
Yeah, it fits in this category, right?
Yeah, right.
So one other part of entertainment that I don't think people spend a lot of time on, at least in this survey, they counted pets as entertainment.
Interesting.
Yeah, and pets, as you get to be a retiree, a lot of us are probably going to have pets, but many don't.
Right.
So the average overall, though, of all people that are of retirement age, they're spending almost 2% of their income on their pets.
Wow. That adds up.
It does add up pretty quick over time, because we all complain when we have pets about how expensive it is to take them to the vet and food and all that kind of thing. But when you think about the really impact of it on your overall spending, it can be pretty big.
For sure.
The 4th highest ranked category in terms of spending of retirees is food at 12.8% of your overall income. And they break it into 2 different categories, food at home or food out. And this is where it takes into all that account. Like if you're on vacation, it counts as food out. It's not a separate category, right? So the food at home is about 8.3% of your overall income, and food out is 4.5%.
Which I find really interesting. So, you always think retirees, you're eating at home, you try and eat at home more, but this study basically eating out, you're spending just half as much as if you were at home, right? So we need to not eat out.
Yeah, there's some of the other videos and things that I've watched, I talk about that's one of the things that retirees, a mindset you got to get yourself around is when you're in retirement and your income is a little more fixed, think about using eating out as a social interaction. Like don't go out to eat a whole bunch of times, just
the 2 of us.
Just the 2 of you, right? Make it an event, where you're going out with another couple or with a group of people or whatever. It's still going to count, obviously, as expenses, but it's food away from home. But you can save a lot of money by eating
at home.
At home, for sure. The 3rd category in terms of where people spend most of their money is healthcare.
Now, interestingly enough, I would have guessed for this one to be higher up than just number 3.
Right.
But
It accounts for about 13.4% of your spending. But again, this is retirees, whether a lot of retirees are going to be on Medicare, so that those expenses aren't as big as they are if we decide to retire before we're 65. You've got a considerable expense in premiums, but this is kind of the average of those that are retired already and what they're spending. And again, 13.4%.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's why in my mind, I thought it would be higher, because I'm looking at it from the standpoint when Rich and I do retire, which will be before 65, we are going to have to pay healthcare costs, premiums. So in my mind, that probably would have been number one. So it kind of surprised me that it was
could have been number
3.
one for sure.
Yeah.
But as a percentage of those healthcare costs, you got to remember, even if you're on Medicare, you're going to have costs, right? So take that into account as you're thinking about your budget. So this 13.4% is made up of a bunch of different kind of subcategories. The biggest one of those is the healthcare insurance premiums, making up about 9.2% of your overall income. But then in addition to that, just because you pay healthcare, that you're going to have to pay deductibles up to a certain amount.
Right.
And that's another 2.3% of your overall income.
Right. And then you add into that prescription drugs and what you have to cover and pay for that. And that's a 1.4%. So it all adds up together.
It all adds up to that 13.4 number. And that's not a small percentage of your overall retirement income for sure.
The second highest category is transportation, and that accounts for 15%.
In transportation, you think about, well, I'm not going to spend that much because I own my cars.
Right.
That's not just the cost of like buying your car. That goes like if you're planning on traveling, not in your own car, maybe if you're going to, airfare, or you're going to take a bus or a train or whatever, those transportation costs are also looped into this number in this survey. But a big part of transportation is also the other costs associated with owning your car.
So insurance, services that you have to do to your vehicle.
And gas.
Oh, gas. See?
Yeah. And so basically half of that 15% is gas and insurance and maintenance and all the other stuff that goes along with owning a car. And then there's, again, the costs of other sorts of travel or getting from one place to another.
Right.
That's part of your 15%.
The most expensive category for retirees is housing costs, and that accounts for 35.7%.
And I know many of you out there are going, well, it's not me.
Right.
I own my home, or I don't have a mortgage anymore. And good for you. And that will cut that number down significantly.
Right.
But there are a lot of other costs. Actually, more than half of that number are made up of the associated things with having a roof over your head.
Right. And maybe, it's a lot of those things that you don't think about. So housing, like a lot of these other categories, the housing part is also going to include stays in hotels, when you are on vacation, anything that is a roof over your head, basically, whether it's your own home or somewhere else, is part of your housing costs. And then it also includes all those other small things, your insurance, your maintenance, right?
Right. Yeah. Those are the things that you're going to have to pay for one way or another. So of that 35.7% of your expenditures, 20.9% relates to that having a roof over your head, no matter where it is. And then half of that expense, half of that 20% is other costs associated with it, like taxes and insurance and just maintenance of your home or wherever you're living.
Right.
Buying a new stove, all those things, average out over time. So that's about a little over 10% of your overall spending is in maintenance of your
shelter,
place where you have the roof over your head. Another part of that 35.7% is the cost of utilities and the stuff that you're going to have, again, no matter where you're at. That's another 7% of your overall expenditure in the housing category is utilities, cable bills,
I was gonna say,
phone bills, garbage pickup, all the things that, you're going to pay.
Right. You don't really think about, but they all add up.
For sure. So these 5 things that we just talked about, that accounts for 82% of what retirees are spending as a percentage of their overall income. So anywhere you can save in any of those categories makes a big impact. So I'll link to the Bureau of Labor Statistics 2023 Consumer Expenditure Survey below in the comments. But if you want to get your head in the right space and have the right mindset for retirement, watch this video. Thanks for watching. God bless.